Good evening, everybody. Hello, my name is Penda James, and I just want to thank you for joining me. This is the Resilience Project. And the Resilience Project is a series of conversations that I'm having with people that I care about because I want to hear bounce back stories about how you've made it through and gotten through to the other side of a struggle, something that you didn't know you could get through. And that story of resilience gives us all strength, courage, and power. This month in November, I'm having a series of conversations with panelists. And today's topic is about I face my fears. I'm not currently in my studio. I'm actually in downtown Atlanta, and I'm sitting on the floor having a conversation with you because I'm in a conference, and it was important to me to take a break from that to have these conversations about the importance of facing our fears. But before I move forward in the conversation and bring my guests up, I want you to know, and I want to take a moment of pause for my spiritual son, Rashad. He was going to be a guest tonight, and he had an accident and wasn't able to be with us. So, Rashad, if you are watching, I just want you to know that there is a group of people. We are sending our love and our prayers, and we are sending words of um, assurance back into your life right now because you faced your fears in pressing to be here with me on tonight, and something happened. That often is what happens when we try to face our fears. But I just want to thank you, and I want to thank God for keeping you and keeping your family. So with that said, I want to bring up my guest for tonight, and that is Diana Lowe. If you don't know that I love Diana Lowe, she's one of my favorite people in the world. And she fusses at me, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't mean that in a bad way. But Diana is one of the people who forces me, and I got one sitting behind me too, Victoria. They force me to face my fears. Chenoa Daniels, I was getting ready to say Murray, Daniels forces me to allow myself to be. Look at her. Like, she is just regal. And this is how she shows up in every single room that she walks into with her crown. So, thank you all. Please share, comment. We want to know that you are here because I'm quite sure all of us pressed to be here on tonight. And before we ladies have our conversation, I want to shout out the homie and Ministry is Me. They are my producers when I do special events like this. And I never could move forward if it were not for her, because sometimes knowing that she's in the background, I feel some emotion right now. Knowing that she's in the background, all of you, it helps me to face my fears. So thank you, homie. You, thank you. If you need help with anything, the homie can help you. Okay, ladies. Anything you want to say about who you are, or anything you want to, say about anything that I've said before we move into our conversation? No, Diana, no. Okay, ladies. So typically we would do this in individually, but we're all going to have our conversation together. So we're all going to answer the questions. And so the first question is, could you define what it means to face your fears? No, I can't hear you.
I'm gonna let Chenoa go first.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, Good evening or morning, wherever you are, kings and queens. So I believe that when you want to move forward with something, it's important to acknowledge the things within yourself that you may think you're not capable of doing, or you don't have the skills, or you are fearful of the outcome, or even what other people might say. I think it's important to acknowledge it, but defining what it means to face your fears to me means acknowledging that, but pressing through to the other side anyway. Like the only way through is through. it's that's what it means to me, to face your fears.
That's good.
That's so profound. I think for me, it is really understanding that a lot of what we don't do is rooted in fear. And we call it so many other things. And really the bottom line of it is fear. And so to define facing your fears is really being honest with yourself about the root of your procrastination, the root of you not showing up, the root of you not getting it done. It has little to do with ability or accountability or laziness or any other title we give things. It really is about fear. And to your point, it's that fear that then says, I can't, I'm not, I'm this, I'm that. And really facing them, and the definition of it is really just being honest with yourself that it exists. And then once you admit that it exists, then you can deal with how to face it, and not only just face it but conquer it.
That's good, both of you. You know, I was going to tell y'all this offline, but I'm just going to tell you what happened to me. Yesterday, I was walking through the exhibit hall where you buy things, and I had heard a campaign speech, and the first word that one of the candidates said was, "Do you see yourself winning?" And when she said that, it like struck me. Like, do you see yourself? I was like, yeah, I see myself winning. So when I walked into the exhibit hall, I walked down the aisle where she had all her campaign material, and her assistant who was helping, they have people at the table, and her assistant said, do you see yourself winning? And I was like, yeah, I see myself winning. And then she's like, look in that mirror and say it. I looked in the mirror, and in the mirror, on the mirror were the words, do you see yourself winning? And I lost it, like just started sobbing in the middle of the thing, in the middle of the exhibit hall. Because I think it's one thing to say, yes, I see myself winning. But when I had to face myself in the mirror and say it out loud, it meant something different to me. And once I saw it across my face, I see myself winning and started crying. I felt a freedom that I hadn't felt before about literally facing myself and facing my fears. Yeah. And the whole idea of like standing in the middle, like people are walking past me, they don't know what's going on and why I'm crying and like the women at the table let me have my moment. Like, like, oh, it's okay, baby. You don't, no, they were like, let God say what he's saying to you, sis. Get it all right here, right now. And I'm like spinning. Well, if you know me, you know I'm animated anyway. And I'm spinning around like, oh my God, I see myself winning. That's what it means to literally stand and look at it and see it and say it out loud.
Yep.
I'm in Chenoa, like, we talked about that a couple of years ago when we had your vision board party. And a lot of those things that we put on our vision boards are now coming to fruition. Yeah. So, yes, this is so good. So that's why we had to press. And that's why I needed to sit on the floor and like be present in this moment with y'all, because this is a continuation of everything that I've been learning since I've been here. And so our next question, how has that been a thread throughout your life, facing your fears?
Would you like to go first this time?
Sure. I can't say that it's been a thread throughout my life, um, because I didn't realize the things that burdened me or hindered me was rooted in fear. I didn't understand that fear had multiple faces. And
Mm,
so I think for me, I didn't face my fears, just simply because um, I didn't realize it was a fear. And then I was the responsible one, right? And so I was always doing what I had to do. Um, and I was always doing what I believed God told me to do. So maybe some of it I didn't realize I was facing my fears. I was just doing what I was told, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, Once I came to understand with mentors and divine friendships and God encounters that so much of what we shy away from has deep roots in fear, then I began to ask God to reveal it. Now, when you ask God to start revealing stuff, watch out, right? And so then I realized, like, oh my gosh, like so much of my life has been rooted in fear. You're not doing this, you're not doing that, because at the end of the day, you're afraid. And so then the question is, well, what am I afraid of? Which is even a harder question. So then you got to face yourself, right? What you're saying. You're looking in this mirror like, well, what are you really scared of? What is it? And so for me, the thread was not being honest, not understanding, not knowing that the fear existed. But once that became the reveal, then really trying to uproot that would be, I would say, what the thread was and how I confronted it.
Thank you, Diana. Chenoa.
I would say a little bit similar to what Diane said, related to kind of living my whole life or a big chunk of it in fear. But I would say I didn't realize that I was living in fear until about 10 years ago. Because what
Mm,
I noticed, and I wrote some things down, but I realized that I was in denial of what I really wanted out of life. I was trying to people please for so long. I think maybe because I'm an eldest child and you're the first your parents have had, and you just want to check all the check marks and get hundreds and A pluses and cross all the T's and dot all the I's because that's what you're told to do. And it's nobody's fault. I still, as an adult, have to accept that. But I didn't realize that I didn't go after what I really wanted until about 10 years ago because I woke up one day. Actually, I was on a date. Anyway, it's a long story. But I realized that something I had mentioned as a teenager hadn't happened yet. And it was nobody's burden or no one else's onus but mine. But I realized as a young adult, I think I was 21 or 23 or something, that it still hadn't come to pass because I hadn't chased after it because of what my parents would think or because of what my friends might say, because I'd studied so long for X and now I actually want Y. I didn't go after it.
mm-hmm.
And so after that moment of, man, this person's getting what they want. I've helped this person achieve a dream. I've helped this sister move out to LA and do her thing. And this brother, I'm sitting here holding like shattered pieces of my dream. Like, well, why didn't I go after my stuff? And I was feeling angry, bitter, jealous of other people who went after their stuff, Christian or not. But that was on me
Yeah.
to accept that. And then I realized that I have not to constantly go after things that scare me, but kind of, because on the other side of that is what I really wanted. So now it's been a reoccurring thing. I'd say for about a decade now, not my whole life, but about a decade now.
Yeah. I think even for with agreeing with both of what you are saying, I I want to say this weekend, like you said, Shanoa, that there were things that I realized that I'm not getting out of life. And I've always been the one making sure that everybody else gets what they want out of life. And I don't think that I necessarily knew how to give myself permission to do that. And so when we talk about what fear is, I didn't learn that there are two different types of fears until probably about 20 years ago. Like, you fear God because he's God, but you don't fear God like that. And so someone told me, like, you treat God the way that you treat your father. You don't want to Daddy, I don't know if you're watching, but I didn't want to disappoint my father. I was definitely afraid of disappointing him. And anything that I did was to the level of um, overcompensating for not disappointing my daddy. And even up until, I'm 47 and I'm still like, ooh, what would my daddy say? Like, even my friends are like, girl, you can't buy that bag because your daddy ain't gonna like it. And it's just hilarious. So finding the balance in the fear of meaning, help me, Diana, in what that, like, you fear God because he's God. Like, so I fear my dad
Right.
because he's my dad, but not to be afraid of him like I'll be afraid of Jason chasing me with a knife,
Correct.
So those kind of things I think is good. So can you tell me about a time, or tell us, those of us who are watching, thank you for watching, Kiki, I see you. Tell us about a time that you had to confront a fear, and what was that like?
I'll defer.
Okay. Let me see. Which one did I decide on? Because there were actually several. There were. So, okay, I'll give a not so deep one. So I've always been afraid of heights,
Okay.
and to the point where, when I would have to drive over a bridge, I just really would try to go another way if there was another way. And so I said, you know what? I'm tired of this because I love to travel. How am I going to get on all these planes? It's, if I'm afraid of heights, if I'm deathly afraid of heights. And so I thought to myself, you know what? Like I said earlier, the only way through is through. And so I just thought, I'm going to jump out of a plane. That's what I'm going to do. And I wasn't bold enough to do it by myself, so I would ask friends to do it with me. But of course, everyone said no. And then my husband now, but my this guy I was talking to, I asked him, would you jump out of a plane with me? And he said, sure. I said, really? So we met up 2 months later. And actually, our first outing was jumping out of a plane. And mind you, I was terrified, of course. And I acknowledged all that, especially when you have to sign your life away saying, if I die, it's not anybody else's fault but mine. And I didn't tell anyone I was doing it because I was embarrassed I was embarrassed about what they would think about me. And so, we go to the plane and everything. I tripped into the plane. I was like, oh God, this is a sign. This is a bad idea. And I go in and my husband now, but Patrick, he wanted to hold my hand on the way up, and I wouldn't let him hold my hand. I wouldn't look out the window. I just wouldn't talk to anybody. I just got to just focus and just do this, because if I think about what I'm doing for real, I'm not going to do it. I can't pay all this money in. Pick it out. So I said a prayer and I said, well, God, if I die today, forgive me for all my sins. I'm going to go. Then they ask you who wants to jump first. I raised my hand because I didn't want to watch him go first and see how fast he was falling. Then I get scared and change my mind. I said, me, I want to go first, So it was, tandem jumping where someone's connected to your back. It was terrifying, those first 10 seconds. But then after your parachute opens, it's the most peaceful feeling. I can't even describe to you. Only someone who's jumped out of a plane would know. But it's so quiet and so serene, and it's so empowering to look at the whole earth, and you kind of float above it in silence. And it's just you and God in air, and it's just glorious. And I'm so glad I did that, because it started a series of confidence in me to do other things. And how I confronted it was, I didn't ask anybody else's opinion. I didn't tell anyone. I just came back home and said, hey, I jumped on a plane today. How was your day? But I didn't ask anyone's opinion, or I didn't ask for anyone's approval, which I was used to doing. I just did it. I just did it.
That's so good. What about you, Diana?
That's insane. So I have a fear of heights as well. So that's insane. So are you still afraid of heights?
No. No, let's go.
That's crazy. Just the thought of it made my head go, no. So let me think.
I see you, Ashley.
Something I had to face. So I'm trying to think of something not so deep too. So I'll use the same. I'm afraid of heights, but I also like to travel, and I never wanted to be bound to the ground because I don't like heights. And so I always knew I was afraid of heights. I get a little wobbly on bridges. I don't like elevators, but I didn't realize how bad or how severe until the first time I rode a plane. And I got on the plane and I was like losing it. And the person next to me was like, you're making all of us nervous. I need you to calm down. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is real. And I realized just how much I was afraid. And it wasn't getting better. And I asked God to help me. And he did. And I just went to sleep. And so what I realized is that some fear ain't gonna go away, and it's not any less. I travel all the time, but my fear of flying has not subsided even a little bit, but it doesn't keep me on the ground. And I think for me, how do I confront it is that I show up and I do it, and I ask God to help, and I do it, because the alternative is not an option. It's just not an option. God created all of this world, and I'm only going to go to the places I can drive to. That's very limiting. Yeah. And I never wanted fear to control me. And I recognize if I couldn't get on a plane, then I've now allowed it to control me. I may have to deal with it and figure it out, but it's not going to control me. And I think so many times for myself, and I think for people, and maybe this is answering the question later, but I'm getting older, I'll forget. So I'm gonna say it while it's on my mind. That so often we feel like confronting and facing a fear is not to be afraid anymore. And that's not true. Every time I get on a plane, I'm like, all right, Lord, it's me and you. We have the conversation, and I get on the plane. And from the first time I ever flew to me just flying last Wednesday, it's the same, but I get on the plane. And so confronting it is showing up, asking your creator, asking God to help you. And everybody's like, oh, it's not that deep. I talk to God about everything. So that's not even an option. But so that's what I would say, is just in spite of it, still going through it.
I don't know if I'm breaking up or
we can hear you.
I'm missing some of what you're saying, Diana, but this is so good. We might have to come back and do a part 2, just because it's so rich. I think for me, I'll go back to when I was a senior in college, probably a junior. The dean of students walked up to me in the hallway when I was walking to class and asked me to go to England for a semester so that I could study abroad. And I was like, no, I can't leave my parents. And I just kept walking on down the hall. And I always regretted that I didn't do that, that I was bound by trying to stay connected to my family and not allowing myself to stretch in that way. So in 2000, I think 1999, I lost my job and I applied for an AmeriCorps program. It was my third one. So you can do it as many times as you want to, but I was 29 and it was the last year that I could do it. So I applied for a year-long internship in Estes Park, Colorado, and I moved out of my house and went to Colorado for a year and lived there at a residential high school and was away from home. And I've been away from home ever since. And confronting the fear was like there was nothing left to lose. I had lost my job. There, I was on a grant and the grant lost its funding, so there was nothing to go. So, homie, what's our next question before?
Oh no, we lost her.
Yeah.
Well, as she stated, she's at a conference, so reception may be bad in her place. And so I am her friend and assistant on many times, and we are live, and so things happen. And so we're just going to pick up the ball. There you
I'm
are.
back.
We was keeping it
I'm back.
moving.
I
I
know.
know how to
Thank
make
you.
things
Thank
work.
you.
Let's go.
Yes, that's having a village of people who support you, and that's so important. So thank you for keeping it moving. Okay, what do you want people to hear? What do you want people to know about facing your fears? And this will be our last question. This will be our last question since my Wi-Fi is acting up. And if you could put your response to the last question in the chat so we can keep the conversation going. But what do you want people to know about facing your fears?
What I'll say about facing your fears is, one, we all have them. You're not alone in that. And to just do it. You'll come to an age when you'll look back on it and be mad at yourself for allowing whatever that thing was to stop you from trying. It's fear is
I'm back.
a thing when you make it this mountain in the moment. It's a mountain in the moment. You deny yourself so much of life and life experiences when you stay within this bubble that you've created for yourself, and that God has so much for us, for you to experience and enjoy. And it's a trick of the enemy to be bound by fear. It is a trick to make you believe that you don't deserve it, that it's too big, that it's too much. What will people think? Like, all of these questions start to flood you, and it keeps you minimized when that is not the plan of God. So just know, get out of your head, take the risk, take the chance, and do it. Do it scared. You don't ever have to not be afraid. You can do it scared.
I like that. That do it scared, because you mentioned that the fear doesn't go. Sometimes the fears don't go away. Sometimes they don't. But doing it in spite of it is true bravery and courage, and truly actually trusting God.
Absolutely.
On the other side of that fear, I would say, I wanted to write it down to make sure I didn't misquote it, but there's a proverb, African proverb, that says something similar to, when you face what you fear most, your lions become nothing but ghosts. Those things that we think can harm us or destroy us become null and void because they can't. It's really in your head. And once you do something small with God and trusting God with something that you're afraid of, then you get more confidence to do something bigger, and you get more confidence to do something greater. And so when who was it? When David finally was getting ready to, slay Goliath, he was already used to fighting lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. So when this human came around talking about all this noise and your God is nothing, he was like, who's this? I've already killed bears and lions. Let's do this. So I would say, even though the fear is there and it exists, it cannot really harm you. Its job is to stop you from what's on the other side, which is more faith in God and other things on the other side. So.
I think I would say that to confront your fear, really you have to let go the fear of being embarrassed.
Mhm.
You know, like that. I think thinking of for me and thinking about what other people think about me, and here I am. I'm like sitting on the floor. I'm having this conversation because this is something that's really important to me. The Resilience Project, talking about bounce back stories, and my internet's going out, and like I'm like, oh my God, inside, inside, I'm like, no, but I just keep coming back
Mhm.
because no matter what, if it doesn't work the first time, I need to keep coming back because this is something that I want.
Mhm.
And looking myself in the mirror across my face and it's saying, are you ready to win? Is something that is going to be impressed upon me, I think, for the rest of my life. Because if I look at myself and I see, it's almost like, do you really want what you say you want? Because if you don't, you're not going to keep coming back. You're going to be afraid of what other people say. You're going to think about embarrassment. Oh my God, this happened. What are they going to think? Or you're not going to jump out of the plane. You're not going to get on the plane. You're not going to move. You're not going to do what you really want to do. Or on top of that, what God has told you to do because the fear. Like I think of when I was taking my screenwriting class, one of my teacher, and she actually was supposed to be on the call with us tonight. I don't know what happened. So Michelle, I'm just going to quote you. But she said, one of her students said that she always thinks about when people say negative things, that it's like they're little monkeys with machetes. So don't let the monkeys with machetes chop your dreams.
Woo.
That's what I said. Like, oh my God, like we're not gonna let the monkeys with machetes chop our dreams. And I said out loud to my friends that I'm here with, like that I'm 47. I'm 47 years old, getting ready to turn 48 in March. And over the past 2 years, I've seen not as much loss as many people that I know, but loss in life, like just watching people grieve because people that they love have passed away from COVID or cancer or all these things. And I'm in the place now where it's like, I don't know how much I have left, Lord, but I'm running all the way to the end, as Martin Lawrence said, until the wheels fall off. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to eat all my food on my plate. I'm going to try new things. I'm going to jump out of planes because I don't want to die full. I don't want to feel like, oh man, I should have went to England when I don't want to live my life for the rest of my life saying, dang, I should have did that.
Mhm.
Dang, I wish I would have. It's so important, I think, for us as we surround ourselves with people who are doing these kinds of things and who are stretching themselves in ways. It almost, watching y'all stretch is stretching me. And watching, Chenoa going all these books on, she's an author, Diana's an author. So Diana and Chenoa, you should connect because Chenoa just goes to bookstores and like she meets people at truck stops and sells 25 books. Like she just walks up to people and talks to them about her book and tells her story, and it opens doors of communication. That's being fearless.
Mhm.
And a definition of being fearless, I guess this is what I would want to say too, is to fear less.
Mhm.
Being fearless, fear less. Huh. Any final thoughts, ladies? I know we have two more questions, but I don't want to keep you too long. I really do appreciate you being here with me. Let's do this again sometime. Um, but I know we have two more questions and they are in your email. So if you can just go in and put your comments in the comment for me in the post where under this, and let's share it. Let's tell people about what's what we learned and what we talked about today. And let's continue the conversation. And my challenge for all of you who are watching is, lean on your friends and lean on the four pillars of the Resilience Project, which is love, faith, courage, and restoration. And always, always, always think about the power in your bounce back story because the bounce back is real. I love y'all so much. Thank you for being here and being with us. And we will see you next week, my love. And we're going to end with a moment of silence for everybody who needs to press through their fears. Because, like Chenoa said, the only way through is through. Love you all.